This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
It's the Dirty Laundry Game-Worn Hockey Podcast.
We're old school, right? We wash our own dirty laundry.
The name on the front is a hell of a lot more important than the one on the back.
I refuse to be judged by a grown man wearing a hockey jersey.
Game on! Game on!
We are back with another episode of the Dirty Laundry Game-Worn Hockey Podcast, episode 101. Thanks for all the support for episode 100. I know a lot of people really liked it. Got tons of people reaching out. Oh my God, where'd you get that logo? That's so cool. I used Canva AI online and generated it in about 10 seconds. AI can be useful for things like that. Some other stuff it's stupid on, but I basically typed in and said, I want a 100th episode hockey logo with a microphone in it, and that's what it generated. So you don't have to go crazy. I mean, some of the times when I work on those, it misspells or looks funny, but it was funny the number of people that reach out and really thought that was cool. But no, it was not any fancy work by me or anything. But we have Paul Rank, Wade Hampton, Justin off has a little golf game to play this evening, and Alex Garoffolo joining us. He reached out after last week's show. We were talking about moving your collection, a little bit touched on insuring collection, and you just went through that. So we'll get into that, talk about how you got started in collecting, all that stuff. But welcome, Alex. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited to be here. Often listen to you all, first-time guest. Hopefully you welcome me back another time.
Definitely. We always like Midwesterners in the same time zone, just up I-55 for me in Chicago. So we'll get into how you got started, that, and the fun with insuring and documenting your collection. And ironically enough, friend of the show, Megan, reached out today and was asking if I knew about a jersey appraisal. She's going through the process of insuring her collection, and the insurance company asked about appraisals. So we'll touch on that a little bit. If other listeners have gone through that, especially on having to do the appraisal side, please reach out, let me know so I can pass that stuff along. The drink of this evening for the old fashioned. A lot of people may laugh at this one because it is a very cheap bourbon, but in this case, it's excellent. Evan Williams Bottled in Bond. I'm a very big fan of the Bottled in Bond across whoever makes them. This one's like $20 or $22 a bottle, but it is actually really good, especially in old fashions or other mixed drinks. So definitely check it out. Cheers to everybody. And as always, our big supporter of the show, Mitch, with the Drink Your Face Off line of barware and clothing. I know we're only halfway through July, but the draft just happened, and Paul and I are both in the middle of an actual hockey draft right now for fantasy and all that. So hockey's on the mind. It'll get cold soon, so you'll definitely need a sweatshirt. So please reach out to Mitch if you need any of that. Wade's packing his bags. He's heading out east for the Migrate Expo this Saturday. You excited? Yeah. You got 6 bags of jerseys packed?
Yeah, I'm actually not taking that much. I started packing, and I'm taking I was going to take a hockey bag as my bag, and then I was like, man, that's a lot. I don't know. I'm like half packed and haven't decided exactly how I'm taking stuff. But I'm excited to go. Yeah, I'm definitely excited. Excited to get out there and see some friends. And, Migrate's obviously announced some pretty cool stuff. I heard today that the lottery for that show, jersey thing is sold out, and then they announced some stuff with the warehouse sale. So I can tell you that when I got to give them credit, when they released the video on the warehouse sale, they pulled out a couple pretty good jerseys. Seemed like that got everybody pretty fired up. So before the show started, I was changing my shirt and I had my tank top on. I might have to show up at that summer sale with showing off the guns, ready to fight to get in the front of the line for some of those special jerseys.
Yeah, I mean that was Migrate's doing a great job with the PR and prepping for that. They also did put out how it's going to work. Dave put out, I think you find out both on Migrate's page, and it may have been on the main Game Worn group as well. explaining kind of how that piece of the sale is going to go. So make sure you check that out if you're planning on going to that on Saturday. And for anybody going, driving up, flying, whatever, please safe travels to all. I know, Wade, you said you ran out. We talked about after last week's show, you were running out to get some air tags to make sure your stuff was all good.
Yeah, I air tag both my bags just to be safe because I mean obviously there's a lot of stuff in them, and I air tagged my dogs too while I was at it, so everything's good here. So yeah, I felt like the air tag thing was a great idea. That was one of those Paul suggestions, and thanks Paul. It definitely, I think, is going to give me a little bit extra peace of mind when you check that bag in and when you're getting ready to take off, just to be able to see if it's on the plane with you or not. So that was a great idea, and I'm excited to actually kind of watch as they move around as I go through the airport and stuff. So I'll report back on that when I get back, along with the show. So I know people will hear this probably before the show. I do have stickers for the podcast I'm taking along. I do have the recorder packed already, Doc, for the to maybe do some, man on the street interviews, and I also have our trading cards. If anybody wants to stop by,
excited
come
for
by
those.
Please come by and say hello. Regardless, just come say hi. I'd like to meet everybody that I don't know, and like Doc said, safe travels to everybody.
I'm just gonna laugh too if when you're on the plane and you track your air tags for your jerseys, it shows your jerseys are at home and Jasper's in the plane.
I'll be like, oh shit.
That would be classic. I would love to see your face for that. But again, safe travels to you as well. I can't wait to hear once you're out there how things are going.
Excited to represent the show.
Yes, it's nice to get people out traveling, and I know again, My Gray, their podcast is awesome. So it'll be nice for you to touch base with them out there. And sure. Again, one big happy family of awesome hockey podcasts. Couple auctions out at NHL auctions, and it just opened as of the recording of this. The Buffalo Sabres sent 2 home, roads, and third jerseys open tonight and close on July 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern time. I'm sorry, Pacific time. So those, you've got 10 days to bid on any of the Sabres jersey. And then 87 Celebrinis have come up for auction, I understand, this week.
Yeah, we haven't talked about this in weeks, I think. But
shocking.
Yes, there's another Celebrini auction. Sharks Pro Shop now have both the Celebrini and Smith up for auction. But the twist this time, these were worn in their first NHL games. So they have it looks like it's the third jersey wore that night. There's a 3 written on the set tag, so that's what we're assuming. I don't know if Mitch or Logan or anyone's been able to photo match these with, one period worth of wear so far. But auction's going on now, ends July 14th. The Smith has 2 bids and is at $5K. And Celebrini has 10 bids and is at $4,200. Wow. And they'll shoot up more on July 14th. Unless everyone already has their fill of Celebrini and Smith jerseys.
Right. Now, and I'd be curious seeing if you've got it somewhere or Mitch or Logan or somebody have it, have you seen any of the other first game jerseys actually show up in for sale in any manner, and if the numbers are written like this one is?
We haven't seen any from Smith or Celebrini from the first game, but other players, I don't recall any being offered as first game jerseys. We have seen in the past, like when Burns would have 2 set 4 jerseys, there might be a number written either on the set tag or put into the back of the neck,
okay,
with a sticky thing. But yeah, no, it's this is, I think this is new for the one game wonder first game appearance jerseys. So.
And it's just interesting that particular one, because we've seen them sell so many others. Do you know what the actual count of the number of Celebrini jerseys is at this point sold?
I don't have a clue. Mitch and I were joking about that the other day, and We know 10 plus, but that's
Wow.
yeah.
But you'd think this would have been one of the first ones to sell because it's the first game. You're now into July. You'd think that would have been if especially it was a one period. You'd have waited maybe a week after that game and sold it. That seems a little odd to wait till mid-July.
Oh yeah, I think these would have gone for much more if they would have sold them the week after the game, or even start the auction at the game.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. If you know you're going to do that.
Yeah. But remember the Sharks. The Sharks have the jerseys. They wear them. They control them, and then they eventually go over to the Sharks Pro Shop, which is a different beast entirely. So who knows when the Sharks Pro Shop got these? I don't know if we can get an answer from them on that. They could have been sitting there for a while, or they could have just came over with other stuff that they gave them to use for the July 25th sidewalk sale. And
it's a heck of a sidewalk sale.
Yeah, and we have no idea if there's going to be new stuff at the sidewalk sale or not. That's all speculation. In past years, there hasn't been much new game-worn stuff there, and most of it's been retail fan stuff, T-shirts and that sort of stuff. Great pricing on the stuff, but it's geared more towards fans than it is to game-worn collectors. In the past, watch it change this year.
Right, just your luck.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Yeah, keep us. We'll touch on that. And that the auction goes till what again? I'm sorry, till 14th.
July 14th.
Okay.
At 12 p.m., which is 12 noon. So
a little weird time, but yeah, we'll definitely have a show. It will be earlier this next week, just because I have to travel next Thursday. But we'll get a show scheduled in after that auction, so I'd be interested to hear what that closes for. All right, the guest of the evening who brings us a lot of good information. They had reached out after last week's show and offered great stuff and wanted to come on. Alex, let's start just by, how'd you get started in the hobby?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I started in the hobby only a few years ago. It was during COVID. I was on the couch with my dad watching a Arizona Coyotes game, and I really thought those jerseys looked sweet. And so I said I would love to wear one of those. And I started off with the Fanatics online store because I was brand new to the hobby. I got the Fanatics breakaway jersey because it was the cheapest thing available on the website. I didn't know anything. And when I got the jersey, I wore it a little bit, but I was really surprised that the front of it was not sewn. I didn't know much at this time. So the decals were heat pressed, and I got to thinking, I bet there's a different level of this. And I started to look on eBay, and that eventually led me to the Facebook groups for the authentic jerseys, which are the on ice replicas, as some folks call them. And I got a healthy amount of those. I think I had north of 50 eventually by the time I was to my end of my authentics phase. And I remember talking to another collector at some point, and they mentioned game worn hobby. And looking back, my first idea was, who would want to own something that a dude's got a yellow collar in, that's torn up, that's got black marks on it? And lo and behold, I made a point in, I think, fall of 22 to cash in most of my authentics collection to move over to game worn jerseys. And I've been collecting since then. So I'm very new to the hobby. I will admit that immediately, but that's how I got into it. I saw a telecast and really wanted a Kachina jersey. I remember I had a Shane Doan authentic as well. Don't have it anymore, but I still really love those Kachina styles that the Phoenix Coyotes wore.
And down the road, those are going to become more and more rare until maybe the Coyotes show back up in some form, but who knows if that'll be the same look. So right. Did you find the stumble across the game worn groups because of the authentics, or how did you kind of finally fall into the game worn side of things?
It was because of the authentics. I was already on Facebook, and I was already in the authentic groups. And I remember talking to somebody from the Reddit thread forum for the hockey jersey forum on Reddit. And they said, yeah, that I know the guy selling that authentic jersey, he's big in the game worn space with that team. And I asked the person, what do you mean game worn? You mean like people who they collect the jersey these guys actually wore? And he said, yeah, there's whole collector communities for it. You should check it out. Every league is out there, every level of hockey, every type is there. And he sent me the link, I believe, to the big Facebook group, the one that Paul admins. And I sat there looking at it going, this is really cool. And I saw the photo matching start happening and being able to own a piece of history. So he was the guy who got me started. Was a guy I was talking to through the Reddit threads trying to sell my authentic jerseys.
But that's awesome, though. It's a great way to angle that, because it sounds like then you were able to start funding that. What was your first game worn purchase?
Man, that's a good question. I wish I could remember the first one, but I will say an early jersey that I had that was game worn was a Seattle Kraken. Oh, he plays for the Stars right now. He's fourth line. Colin Blackwell. I had a Kraken Colin Blackwell jersey because I really wanted an inaugural season patch. And Colin Blackwell was one of the only Kraken jerseys that Migray had left with the inaugural patch that was in my price range. So that was one of the first jerseys I owned. That was one of my first interactions with Migray. Shameless plug here. Latest pickup behind me.
We'll get into that one soon. So when that got dropped off at your house and you opened the box for the first time, what'd you think?
I was kid in a candy store. My eyes got big. I was like, whoa, the colors popped. I saw the actual damage on the sleeves. The S with the eye on it was really neat. And I was thinking, wow, this is not an eBay patch. This was the real team patch this guy wore on the ice. And I saw the damage on the sleeves and the arms, and I was looking at the photos immediately going, man, if I could match this. It was a home jersey. So I got into the detective mode, and it was really cool. I put it on. I know that's kind of a debate in the hobby of should you wear your gamers, but I put it on. I walked around my apartment that day going, whoa, Colin wore this. And it was pretty neat.
I think most everybody does, especially when they get it in the mail for the first time, or even if you go pick it up at the store and you get home. I swear every single person does that just once they get to try on their newest jersey. So I'd say you were probably very hooked at that point. Get a little bit of a jersey addiction all of a sudden.
Oh yeah, well it was already growing because I had about 50 authentics before I switched over to game worn, and I sold off the authentics to fund the game worn hobby. So I was already kind of in deep, as you could say, but then the game worn hobby got it even deeper of doing the research, looking at hockeyreference.com, looking at the styles. One of my first big things with collecting was I still am into the alternate styles from the 90s. So the green Phoenix Coyotes jersey, the Storm jersey that the Tampa Bay Lightning wore, the salmon skate that the Canucks wore. And so I was very intrigued by those and wanted to find them.
What you're saying is you're in the expensive part of the hobby, is those rare styles that were all super cool, but yeah, much harder to acquire.
Yes.
So how long did it take you to come up with kind of a focus?
I think it took me 6 to 9 months of just buying stuff that I thought was cool, and then sitting back there looking at the closet that was game worn closet and realizing I need to make a choice. I can either buy stuff because it's got a cool logo or it's got a neat patch that I want, or I can make a strategy about, do I want to have a theme? Do I want to collect a certain player? It took 9 or 10 months. I listened to a few podcasts episodes from Migray that talked about, is this a hobby or are you investing? And to me, still, I can't decide. But it took 10 months before I had a direction, because I definitely realized, okay, you can't just keep buying something because it looks cool. I wanted to tailor it down to something.
I mean, you definitely can, but you better plan on expanding closets and having it overtake rooms of your house and things. But,
right.
But no, and we've talked about that at length, is find have an idea of what your budget's going to be and kind of some kind of focus. Like you said, if it's certain patches, if it's certain teams, but do something. Don't buy just to buy because, oh yeah, that looks cool today. And 2 weeks later, yeah, that doesn't really what I want. I want something else. And you're constantly having to turn stuff over. So what did you end up kind of settling on?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I have two themes right now. The first is jerseys that are meaningful to me for a specific reason, and these can be minor league jerseys. So right now I'm looking for another Tulsa Oilers jersey to finish off my Michael Farron collection, who was my favorite player when I watched the Oilers play. And I'm also looking for a Savannah Ghost Pirates jersey because my girlfriend's sister lives in Savannah, and we went to a few Ghost Pirates games when I was there last, and the arena was a great time, and I really love their lime green jerseys. And the second thrust of the collection is really Dallas Stars captains right now, and that's what I'm trying to strategize around. I had a Hall of Fame bend for a little bit when I had more disposable income to throw at things, but now that I've gotten through that, I'm looking for Dallas Stars captains. So that's why I actually have this Tenorti jersey behind me. Even though this is from the Minnesota North Stars, it's good enough for now because it's a captain gamer, and his jerseys are not easy to locate.
Hey, no, I'd say that's definitely acceptable since they're tied together. So what tied you to Dallas?
So I'm from Oklahoma. I'm from a relatively small town called Stillwater. It's where Oklahoma State University is.
Mm-hmm.
And Dallas was the closest hockey team to me growing up. My dad has been a huge hockey fan his entire life. And I was in Dallas frequently because I had friends there, and going through high school and into college, I would go there for conferences and different trips. And I would always try to catch a game or two at the American Airlines Center. I still think it's a great atmosphere, one of the best in hockey. And I remember watching Mike Modano play, getting to see him growing up when that would have been middle school days for me, and just watching the jersey flap in the wind as he flew down the ice. So that's how I really got into Dallas and that area, being able to see a lot of Dallas games growing up. And I've been following them since.
So at least you being in Chicago, at least you're not trying to collect Chicago Captains jersey because you need a real deep pocket budget for that one.
Oh yeah.
So, and it's kind of cool. And going back to the Savannah Ghost Pirates, I think everybody wants one of those jerseys. I see those pop up occasionally, or when people pick them up, they are gorgeous. I love when, and even especially the minor leagues, when teams go out of the norm and just do some really, really cool designs. So good luck with that. And how many captain's jerseys do you have so far?
So for the North Stars collection, for the Dallas Stars collection, I've got 4 of the 6 at this point. I have a Modano captain jersey. That one blew a hole in the wallet that I'm still recovering from.
Funny how that seems to do that, but good pickup.
I've got a Jamie Benn captain. I've got a Brendan Morrow captain jersey, and now I've got a Mark Tenorti jersey. So the only 2 left would be Neil Broughton, which is going to be pretty hard to find because he was only captain during the shortened season in the mid-90s when after Tenorti left the team. And then I need to find a Darian Hatcher, which they come up in Classic pretty often. I just missed my chance last time. So I got 4 of the 6 down, 2 more to go, and so slowly making progress.
Hey, good for you. I hope those other ones pop up soon and pop up when your budget allows to pick them up, because that always seems to happen too, is they show up when your budget is not you're not ready for it.
Exactly.
So the other side of the conversation tonight is insurance. You just went through that with your you said your renter's insurance company in Chicago. So kind of tell us the process of what brought you to asking them about that, because some probably smaller collectors may not think about that. I think some of us bigger ones probably have, but some of the newer collectors, that's not something that crossed your mind. Or maybe when did it come up for you to think about that?
It first came up for me to think about when I saw a post from a fellow collector on one of the Game Worn groups who'd had a house fire. And I realized he'd either posted because he had a fire or his friend who was a collector had a fire. And I realized if I have that happen in where I live, I don't get anything out of these. I don't have them insured. So that was the impetus for me to think about, okay, how can I get these insured? So I went on the Facebook group, the big one that Paul admins, and I asked people who recommends collectibles insurance. Give me some agencies, please. And I checked out the one that was the most upvoted that specialized in collectibles insurance. They gave me a quote after I gave them what I assumed was a fair market value for the collection. Because I live on a ground floor, they also asked me for a stillage photo to prove that the jerseys weren't subterranean, weren't on the floor in case something flooded. And so that's how I first looked into the insurance. And then the way I came to my renter's company is I let it lay dormant for a few months, like I shouldn't have, like we kind of do with insurance. It's important, but it's not right in your face. Sure. And I was going to update my insurance for my renter's policy. And I said, hey guys, would you happen to insure items, collectibles? Because my renter's policy isn't going to cover this collection. And they said, yeah. And that's how I got started with my renter's company.
So what did they ask for anything specifically? Or like you said, with the collector insurance company, they said, okay, what's your estimate of fair market value? And it sounds like they were going to basically base it off of that. They didn't ask for any kind of an inventory or an appraisal or anything?
No. So to get a quote from the collectibles people, they didn't have an appraisal requirement. They didn't have any type for a need for an appraisal for the jersey values. But what the way I came to my fair market values was I asked several seasoned collectors. I said, hey, I'm looking at jersey insurance. What do you think a fair market value is for this jersey? I knew I'd overpaid for a few months. So I was like, the sales price is not the fair market value for some of these. And I triangulated off 4 or 5 guys who kind of mentored me in the hobby to come to some prices. And then the way it worked with my renter's insurance company is they call it a personal articles policy. So PAP for short. And what they said they needed from me was a listing of every jersey, my estimation of the fair market value, and then what gave the jersey that value. So I actually have a document, a PDF, and what they require is the jersey itself, my fair market value, and then I list, is it a Hall of Famer? Is it a retired number? Is this matched to any kind of game wear? And does this have a letter of authenticity or some certificate that says this is official? This isn't Alex, pulling this out of his garage and saying, insure it for me, please. So that PAP document is what I maintain. And anytime I purchase a jersey or I sell a jersey or I trade a jersey in and out of my collection, what I do is I update that document and it changes the fair market value total for my collection. And then I send it off to my insurance agent. And within a week, we update the fair market total for the collection.
That's an interesting how they do that. So and again, like you said, you're listing some details on a jersey of why the value you think that value is. Some of the other aspects of that, even for maybe I call it a low level player, but some medium level players, is the number of jerseys out there in existence can, I think would change that fair market value a little bit. So if you've got even a mid-level player, if he, or let's say he did something big, but then was injured, only played a couple seasons. Let's say he's only got 6 jerseys, but what he did has made that value really high. That's a rarity thing. And going to replace those is going to be a much higher cost than if it's a 4th line grinder that's played in the NHL 8 or 10 years, bounced around, never did anything big, but has tons of jerseys out there. But on the other side of that coin, again, is Gretzky's and things like that are the high-end Hall of Famers that doesn't matter what jersey of that player you have, all of them are worth crazy money.
That's a fair point, and something that I hadn't considered fully for each piece in the collection was how hard is one of these to obtain, the rarity factor, because you're right. And what they do, I forgot to mention, when I put the personal articles policy document together, each time I give it to them, they send it to their underwriting staff. So I'm assuming that someone in underwriting is bouncing this off of some kind of like auction records or whatever underwriters use to double check me. At least that's my hope. But they have yet to come back and say, hey, we're not going to insure this for $3,000. This is actually worth $400. So, but you raise a great point of the rarity factor and the need for possible professional appraisal. That's a process I haven't gone through, is getting anything actually officially appraised.
I mean, even just taking your jersey right behind you, how many of those are in existence? If the one you have right there is destroyed, do you have an ability to even be able to replace it? I mean,
that's
and again, point. Maybe they're factoring some of those things in as well, or maybe again, and I don't want to mess up how they bill you or what they charge you, but maybe in some of those cases is player was only captain this 1 year, only wore 3 jerseys. That's all in existence. Will make replacement costs extremely difficult, or I don't know. It's just some different things as we kind of go through this kind of popped to my head. And Wade and Paul, feel free to jump in if you think of some of this stuff too, or if some of this hits. But and again, you don't have to give exact figures, Alex, about what, even just kind of a rough estimate, did this add to your policy? Was it reasonable, or was it kind of like, wow, I didn't expect it to be that?
Oh, I find it definitely really reasonable. So this is a separate policy altogether, the renter's insurance aside, and then the separate one is the personal article policy. And my premium per month right now for the personal article policy is anywhere from $38 to $42, and that's for a lot of coverage, north of $90,000.
Wow.
So you had to go through, providing the values, providing justification for it. And the one thing I'm wondering, does the insurance company then accept that as that's what the value is if something tragic were to happen? Or have you heard stories of people then who try to file a claim? Do they then try to validate those values and maybe pay out less? I'm just concerned that, with an insurance thing like this, and it's very dynamic, it sounds like, because, as you're updating jerseys and it changes your value and then your premium too. If the insurance company is, if they're doing any research on it at all at that point, or if they're just waiting until you file a claim to then do research and like, oh, this price is way off, and it can be replaced for much less. They're never going to say it's going to cost much more. You might, if something, once you find out trying to do it. So when you did your research, were you able to find any examples or cases like that when people actually had to file claims?
I haven't found an example where someone tried to do that. I asked them at my renter's insurance place, I said, so, what happens if that very situation occurs and this thing burns up in a fire, or it's whatever happens to it, take the Tonorti, for example, it goes up in flames. What would you do to double check the number that I've given you, or is it already certified? Because when I sent that number to you, it went to underwriting and you came back and updated my policy as such. They made it sound like they would honor the number that their underwriting team came back with on the policy. But then I asked, okay, well, what does your underwriting team check against? If I tell you this is worth $4,000 and you have an underwriting team do you have a section of underwriting that works with sports collectibles? And what do they use to make sure that I'm not lying to you and saying that this jersey is worth way more than it is? They made it sound like they had a data. They would check public auction records. that they would check whatever was publicly available. To me, I had already done that as a collector, but I think that leaves some gap room for people who might be nefarious, who could say, this is worth this. And if your underwriters are taking you at your word. But I could also see that coming back to bite you, like you just said, where you submit a claim and say this tenority is worth $4,000, and then they say, hey, actually it's not. And then I could say, well, I gave it to you on my PAP form, and you gave the okay to it. So but I haven't found an answer exactly what you're looking for. What they've told me is that they would honor what's on the policy. I haven't been in a situation to double check that personally yet, though. So that's a really good question.
Yeah, but like you said, because it went to underwriting, they did whatever review they're supposed to do, signed off and said, yep, you're good to go. That would be my understanding of, okay, it's $4,000. That's what I expect to get.
Once they sign off on it, you're good. Like once the underwriters sign off and say it's good, it's good. Because I have the same thing, and then I also have old cars and a couple of classic cars that, like, I have Haggerty auto insurance for classic cars, and so part of that is part of your policy is set up based upon what you agreed to as the replacement value. So it's kind of once the insurance company agrees to it, they're kind of locked into it a little bit, if that makes sense. That's where that negotiation comes in. Now, if you would have said the tenority jersey's worth $40,000, that's probably where they would have came back and said, hey, this isn't right. So that they, I'm sure, they've got people that are checking into that stuff. And there are actually companies that do specialize in and they have people that just do specialize in sports memorabilia.
Because like one thing that actually just popped into my head, and I'm just going to use them as an example, but I'm not knocking them. It's just they're the convenient, easy example. Is Migray. Let's say you bought that jersey. Call it. I know you just got it, but let's say you bought it a year ago and paid, let's say $4,000, whatever you paid. Well, starting Saturday, the Migray sale starts, and if they have another one of those, and let's say they mark it 50% off. Can the insurance company go, oh, you said it's worth $4,000, but since Migray is selling it for half that, the actual value is $2,000, we won't cover the $4,000. I wonder, and again, Migray, because of their business and how it works, would be the only place you could check that, but that sale's only good for, a month-ish.
Once they write, it's so different than your home insurance, though, Doc. Like, once they write off on a agreed-upon value for the house, it's like they can call you back like 6 months later and be like, your siding looks pretty shitty right now. So we're going to bump that thing back, $20,000.
Yeah, I just was concerned if, like, if they're going, if the timing hits just right when underwriting is look at it, and that's one of the places they go look and go, well, all these are going to be 50% off. That tells me that the actual value is half of what you say it is. I'd just be curious if something like that would ever happen to anybody. It's probably not, because the timing has to be just right. But just as we were talking, it popped into my head with Migray sale happening this weekend.
But the other thing in terms of valuation, when you submit them to the insurance company, you're paying $500 a year for this coverage, and it's based on your total value, which obviously the insurance company's there to make money. So they know that the premiums they're charging you for, X amount of coverage, they're still going to make a profit on ultimately, over the course of a lot of people. So to go back, $500 a year, how much research are you really going to do to verify values someone has submitted you? I mean, you got to pay for the people's time doing this, and and you've already covered it at such a point where you're going to make a profit as the insurance company, in theory. So, I wonder how much checking they really will do, other than like, hey, it seems reasonable, having a sports expert look at it and then sign off on it.
That's funny. I'm surprised he can fit 200 Graymore and Gretzky's in his apartment. But no, Paul, I think you're absolutely right too. Is they've got all those formulas. They know how every little piece of this works, and you're right. The cost of the research time and everything else. As we know, all insurance companies are gonna be out there to make money, just like you said.
So now, Doc, in your example, when Alex adds 100 Gretzky's to his collection, Alex, what do you have to provide to the insurance company to prove that you own them? Do you have to provide photos? Do you have to? What's that aspect of this?
Yeah, that was my other point to make was, so I use Flickr to both share my collection and as a visual repository. So what I do on my PAP document is that I link my Flickr album for each one of these jerseys to that document. So when I download it as a PDF and send it to them on an email, they can click that link. And I also have told them, if for any reason you want more photos of these, or you want me, like Nikki, to put my foot in one of them to prove I didn't take this from an image database, I can do that for you. And they haven't yet asked me for that, but I do link my Flickr albums on that PAP sheet for that reason. And those albums have pictures of the LOA. They also, or the certificate if it exists, as well as pictures of the jersey. So great question.
Now, they asked for that, or you just did it because you felt that would get you covered the best way?
They asked for pictures of it, and instead of uploading 10, 15 pictures per email, I said, hey, what if I just link my Flickr account to this for each album? And they said that works.
Awesome. Yeah, that is convenient because, like you said, you can share it to friends and who other collectors, whoever, but it's also your repository, and that's great. And okay, on the other piece of this, because we've had this debate on a lot of shows, is paper LOAs. Some people don't use them. Fanatics is one, or all digital now, so you can look up the code. Some teams sell grab bag jerseys, other things don't include LOAs. They may have a set tag in them. Does that make it more difficult, or are there any jerseys in your collection that only had set stamps, or you had to use other things to provide them more information?
Sure. I have a few that don't have certificates at all. And for those, I have thankfully been able to match them to photos or cards. I've looked at game tape too, but I haven't matched any game tape yet. But photos and cards is what I've used. And I don't, there's only one or two jerseys in my collection. I'm thinking of my minor league ones from the Oilers, the Tulsa Oilers, where they don't put set tags in them because they use them for most of the season. So I use the matching for that one. Okay. And I don't have certificates for them. So for those, it's the matching, and then it's the game wear, and then ideally it's them me giving them the album from my Flickr account. So that's what I use for those. But you raise a great point. I don't know if they would say something like, hey, you're asking for something that's $6,000. Do you have a piece of paper that verifies this? Because unlike collectors who might say, hey, I can match it to a photo, that's good enough, the insurance company might say, you're asking us to insure this for $8,000. Do you have a piece of paper from any authority that says this is legitimate?
Yeah, no, and it'll be interesting as you go along down the road with collecting more, if you do come across that, or if other collectors out there have had to deal with some of those, similar to how Alex has had to do it. What were some of your things? And like I mentioned at the top of the show, is Megan going through this right now, and her particular insurance company is asking for a professional appraisal. I'm wondering if, and as you look through stuff, Alex, or worked on this, did you look at any companies to do a full appraisal, or because what the two insurance companies you were talking to more of just said, hey, you come up with evaluations and we'll review them? That was as far as you went?
The latter. I haven't had to look at what appraisal costs would be because of the you do your research, you give us the value, our underwriting will double check your research. I haven't had to look into appraisers or look to what that would cost or how I would facilitate that.
Awesome. No, that hopefully helpful for both her and a lot of other people. So really, it sounds like the process wasn't overly burdensome or crazy, nor the costs being unreasonable either at this point.
I agree with both of those because I was already logging things in Google Drive, especially as Doc, as you talked about on last week's show. I already was logging things there, so it was just bringing it into a document and then trying to justify the values and saying matched, where Hall of Famer, retired number, that kind of deal. No, it hasn't, especially because I only have 24 jerseys in the collection. It has not been a painful process at all.
And one more question before we get over the documentation side is.
Sure.
Again, you have a smaller collection compared to some, and it sounds like, again, with what you're trying to do is you're picking up stuff on a semi-regular basis. How frequently, like as soon as you receive that jersey, do you document it and then update that form and send it? Or is it once a month? Kind of what, as you add jerseys, what would be your time frame for sending that document to the insurance company?
I try to get that document done within updating the document within about a week of getting a new jersey or shipping one off, selling it, or trading it. I'm pretty nerdy when it comes to my new arrivals. So if I have time, even the day it comes, I'll put it back in my computer room and I'll take my photographs and whatnot, and then I'll make a post-it note on my monitor to the next 2 or 3 days to update my PAP sheet and send it off to Oscar at my company. So I try to do that, and also I would say at most I'm getting a jersey every 6 weeks, maybe every 2 months. So again, I'm not getting 10 in at a time. If I were getting 10 in at a time, I would probably batch it and let them know, hey, I got a batch of 10 coming in. Look for an updated sheet in the next 2 weeks, kind of deal, 2 or 3 weeks.
Because though at that level, you could probably be really changing what you may be paying for per month. Right now, especially if you said there's some in and out, you're probably pretty much washing stuff out where it's not just going to be going, yeah, we're not changing this by $1 or whatnot. It's not, doesn't add up for us or you to charge you $1 more because of a tiny change.
Right. I honestly I think it's more my responsibility and me holding myself to the standard because, like you said, my premium has not changed more than $6 up or below a certain point as I've had the insurance, and I've had the insurance since February. So okay. You're right. It's either up a little bit or down a little bit. It's never, hey, now we're tripling your monthly premium kind of deal.
Until you get the 100 Gretzky's in.
I'd like one. I'd take one.
So we all would. We'll just spread it around. So you mentioned documentation of your jerseys and using Google Drive and other stuff. So kind of how do you document them and what do you put in your documentation? You describe what you send off to the insurance company as far as who it is, the team, like all those details and some of the where and why it's this value. Are you using that same document as your master inventory sheet? Or are you doing some different way?
I'm doing it a little bit separately. I get pretty nerdy with this, so I will give a high-level overview, and if you want more detail for the listeners, I'm happy to provide that. So what I do is I have a Google Drive that is my inventory, and I have top-level folders that are for every team that I own a jersey from. So let's take the Stars, for example. It's what's behind me. So I would have a Minnesota North Stars folder, and I would have a subfolder that said Mark Tenorti. And in that subfolder, I would have 3 things. The first thing I have is what I call insurance pictures. This is the stuff I take when I get it. I get the My Gray box, I pop it open immediately, salivate, and then go, I want to photograph this. It's my insurance photos. My second thing that I put in that player folder is photos of any certificates that came with it, whether that's from My Gray, that's from a different company, wherever. If I have an LOA, I photograph it. And then the third thing I put in there after doing some research is any matches. Is that maybe that's a download from Getty that I've marked with a circle, or that is a card that I found on eBay or a card database that I screenshot. So that is the way that I keep my records in the Google Drive. And then I have a master spreadsheet that actually, to your point from last week, Doc, has every jersey has a line, and it has a bunch of nerdy info for me in it that the insurance company probably doesn't care about. But that helps me double check against my PAP doc that I do send to the insurance company. My spreadsheet is my double check to make sure I'm not giving them something that's incorrect.
Wow. So you are, especially going that level and building the folder for each individual jersey at, we talked about this a little bit before the show. Paul brought it up, is the scalability. It sounds like, and again, I love nerdy too. You heard me talking about me probably in past shows. I think I even mentioned it last one, is the auction tracking document that I run. And it goes back to 2017, every single Blues auction, and put every jersey that was in it and what price it sold for. I don't do equipment of that because it just adds way more. But even that, just keeping up on just organizing the roster, and especially if somebody leaves and somebody comes in and making sure they're in there, just that little bit can be cumbersome. What your stuff sounds is amazing, but I couldn't imagine, like you said, if you're every 6 weeks or so, or you're getting a jersey, isn't bad. But if you're bringing in a batch of 6 or 8, that would, I think, get a little time consuming. But of course, it is an enjoyable part of the hobby to do those kind of things too, especially doing the photo matching.
You are correct. It would be time consuming. And at that point, I think I would have to dedicate half days to it, where I would have a batch of 8 or 10 that came in, and I would get my insurance photographs in on a Sunday evening or a Sunday afternoon. And the last thing I forgot to mention is that when I take all those insurance pictures that I put in my Google Drive, that's what I end up uploading to my Flickr. So it's one smooth process where I upload to my Google Drive, and then those are the same photos that I put in my Flickr for the jersey. But going back to your main point, yes, it doesn't scale very well, especially if you're a collector who's bringing in 10 or 15 at a time, or you're someone whose collection has the size of multiple Z racks. I am space limited, which is one of the reasons that I strategically purchase or strategically sell. But if I were bringing in a lot more, I don't know if I'd be going to this level of detail. I would be doing what the insurance company, probably the minimum for the insurance company, because it is manual. It's one at a time. And it takes some time even as is, because especially if you get nerdy about it and you're like hunting through Getty and you go, okay, I can't find this one because this picture isn't labeled with Mark Tenorti, but maybe he's in the background of just the general 93 stars pictures. So you're correct.
Just sleep on the couch and you can give up a bedroom and put Z-Racks and stuff in there.
There you go.
I mean, you can always, you don't need a lot of place to sleep. The jerseys are where it's at, but no, it really does sound like that you've come a long way in a very short while. I still call you very new. As it's only been a few years. What are the biggest positive you found and the biggest pitfall you found since you got started, especially on the game worn side of things?
You mean in the hobby in general?
Yes. Or something you wish you knew going in that would help others.
I will start with, I like to end on positive notes, so I'll start with the negative. I will say that I wish I had known that sometimes people will break off transactions or discussions, and it's not a negative reflection of you or anything you've said. It's simply them being themselves. Maybe they decide they don't want to sell something and they don't tell you that, and then they instead just vanish. I've had mostly positive experiences in the hobby, but the few negative ones I've had have been when I'm asking someone about a jersey they have. I had one time when a person I was going to purchase something from just came back unapproached and said, yeah, actually, I'm not going to sell you this. And I was thinking, okay. I had another time a guy blocked me because I took too long to pay him. And I regret that my communication wasn't better on that deal, but people can be very hair trigger. And I wish that I had known that beforehand and had probably not beaten myself up so much about that, because it leaves you wondering, did I do something wrong? And if I did, I wish they would tell me what I did wrong instead of just blocking me. I apologized, but I try to apologize. And then the positive, of it that I've really enjoyed is that I wish I had known is it's okay to ask for help and it's okay to ask for questions or ask questions. I think that newer folks to the hobby, especially like me, who are very curious and want to learn, it's sometimes intimidating to see someone put up something like a Brian Leach jersey that from his Conn Smythe season, or if he Brian Leach jersey, or some really big Hall of Famer like a Draisaitl or a McDavid, and you go, man, I want to ask him questions about that, but I don't swim in that same league, and I don't know if they would appreciate me coming to them asking something that to them might sound dumb. I will tell the newer collectors like myself out there, ask the question. It's like being at the gym and seeing the buff dude in the corner who's banging out squats that are 3 times his body weight. He might look intimidating, but he looks like that because he cares about working out and he cares about nutrition. And most of the time, those guys love teaching people proper form so they don't hurt themselves. It's the same way in the hobby. The guys who are putting out the Patrick Kanes are the same ones who are usually really happy to tell you how they got them, how they found them, how they go about photographing them to make sure that they don't have shadows in the background, that kind of stuff. It's okay to ask for help. And that's what I've really loved about the community. And my third point would be if you have money and patience, you can find almost anything. That's something I've learned. I've been looking for a Tenorti for a while, and one of my good collecting friends forwarded it to me on Migrate and said, hey, that thing you've been looking for a while, here you go. So those are the 3.
And no, those are all phenomenal answers. And as again, even just now, welcome to the hobby. You've not been in it long, and you jumped in the deep end of the pool, honestly, fairly quickly. But I'm glad that you weren't overly afraid to ask questions, and you found people like the people in Reddit, and they're a fantastic group over there. Is getting hooked up with people that say, "Oh yeah, let me help you. You're in this now. Did you know this exists? And kind of here's how it works," because that's how we bring in more collectors. We've talked at length. You could have 2 jerseys, you could have 2,000. You're still a collector, or you could just be interested in getting jerseys, and you just don't have the budget to do it yet. But you're learning all the things about the hobby before you've ever laid hands on a jersey at all. And you like you said before we came on, is you learned from some mistakes with buying some of the what you thought were authentics and different things, and you learned the quality, and you learned a little bit about knockoffs and stuff like that. And unfortunately, that continues to happen. But that's why we do stuff like this. That's why we post stuff in groups for the hopes to people to either find it or ask the questions and help through. I just saw a bit ago before we came on the show on one of the Reddit posts I follow. Somebody asked, is this jersey legit? As soon as I opened it, I could see it's the bubbled numbers. I mean, an obvious knockoff. And I scroll through really quick, and there's 20 comments. Hey, no, this is 100% knockoff, and here's why. And it's, we don't want to see anybody get screwed in buying a gamer, accidentally buying a knockoff, whatever it is. But I don't want anybody to ever worry about asking a question if they're going to get yelled at. And if you're to reach out to somebody and they kind of give you a hard time about it, don't be put off. Reach out to somebody else, because maybe there's a reason. Maybe they are just an ass, or something else is up. But reach out to you. I'll put it this way, and I'll use Paul's Facebook group, the main group, and even Wade and I being in admins on the Blues group. We're admins, one, because we like the hobby or the team that we're involved in to oversee that. But we also want people to look and go, oh, yep, they're admins, and reach out to one of us to ask questions about something you're looking to buy, or, hey, I see this out here. Do you know more, or whatever it is? Most of the admins, I think, across the board in the hobby are going to be people that will be willing to answer questions. And sometimes they may not get back to you right away for work or whatever else. And if you're somebody from that side, and I've done the same thing where people reach out, hey, can you help me with this thing or whatever? I'm like, hey, I'm at work right now, but once I get home tonight, let me look over these pictures or whatever. Yep, I'll get back to you, help you, no problem. So I'm glad that you kind of got figured out of how to reach out and talk to people. But even you mentioned with the out of the league jerseys, if you approach it the right way, most collectors should still be willing to answer questions. If, like you mentioned, the McDavid, if you reach out and said, hey, I'm completely unable to buy this thing, but I'm just curious about XYZ on the jersey. Do you mind answering a few questions? I mean, if they at least say no, okay, cool. You responded, no, okay, hey, I appreciate your time. Or they may, oh yeah, here's this with these repairs, or here's how they do this, whatever. But as long, and that may be part of it, as we see posts a lot about people complaining about tire kickers and this or that or whatever. But if you're clear, like what you mentioned up front, and being out of your league, but you still wanted to learn some info, be up front and say, hey, I cannot buy this. It's not in my budget, but do you mind answering this? That clears up right up front what you're asking for and kind of what the expectations are. So even like that, but I am glad overall it sounds like that you had a pretty positive experience coming in.
I have had a really good experience. I've met some really good people. I have yet to go to an in-person expo. I'm going to probably go to Wade's now in St. Louis. It's close by. And I love talking about it, talking about the topic. And I have met some great folks, some really fantastic individuals, people I call friends digitally. We've never met each other in person. But I wanted to touch on one other item that's really good for why it's good to reach out to people and ask these kinds of questions that you just mentioned. A lot of times the jersey that you're looking for might never actually get posted for sale, but a person has it and is willing to sell it. And if they know you're looking for it and you have a good relationship with them, this happens to me. It's happened to me multiple times. People ask sometimes, where'd you get the one of the where'd you get one of the ones in your collection? A lot of the great jerseys in the hobby are not ever posted. If you ask people questions and you show an interest and you say, I appreciate you helping me. I'm looking for a Mark Tenorti captain jersey. If you ever see one, if you ever have one, just let me know. They will say, hey, I got this new crop of stuff and I know you're really looking for a Kachuk Phoenix Coyotes jersey. Do you want this? And then it'll never get posted for sale, but you just have your in and you already have that connection. And I see sometimes people will, for example, Hunter on the bigger group will post, these are some of the best finds of the year that I've sold or I've traded. And people will go, I never saw you post that. And he had mentioned, hey, a lot of these I never post because I know people. And so that's another reason to reach out and ask for help and make these connections, because that way you don't have to look at the public post. They already know you want it and you're friends and they will tell you they have it.
Activity that's a great point. Activity is a huge seller to you finding out about things. I find that all the time. I mean, I get reached out to regularly about stuff that people know I either collect or I'm looking for, and I've connected stuff for other people, but you're 1,000% right. And that has to do with just having connections and maintaining good interactions with people. That's part of the fun of it too, is getting something that other people might want, but they're never going to hear about it because it's going to get offered quietly to you first. Maybe that's not a bad feeling.
Well, and I'll give you a prime example of that, Wade, because it's breaking news right now. Paul Rank might want a Ryan Reeves jersey because he was just traded to San Jose. So Paul might be working for a Ryan Reeves jersey now, but that was just funny. You mentioned that, and I see the pop up for the trade. Like, wow, that couldn't be better time.
Well, if he got traded to Detroit, I'd be more interested, but in an older one. What did the Sharks give up for Reeves? Don't tell me Henry.
It can't be a lot.
Therun, or
Damn
however you pronounce his name.
Yeah. They seriously give up Henry for him?
Yep.
I knew they were looking to trade him, but okay, this sucks.
Sorry to rain on your parade in the middle of the show, but that timing was so perfect talking about that. I just had to throw that in there.
I'm sure we'll break the news to a whole bunch of others in the morning too. So
right, the Sharks have just decided to get rid of their team this year, but no, Alex, that's another great point, because especially as you find that you're in the hobby a bit, and some people know that, just like Wade said, as you're looking for a particular player or a particular team, you may get reached out to on the regular. Hey, I've got these things, and sometimes the timing's right, sometimes it's not. But just building that reputation, and we continue to see it, and it's funny sometimes to see the vouching posts when I see the names of people. Hey, I'm making a deal with this person. Can we get vouchers? And I look them up, and they're both super long time hobbyists, but they may have never done a deal or whatever. But I look at the names, and I'm like, wow, they've been around forever, but you still get the vouchers for both sides coming in. And I know the newer collectors have to go through it some too, but it's all part of what makes this good, is because you can throw that out there and in 30 minutes have 10 or 15 responses of, yeah, I just did a deal with him, or I've done multiple, whatever it is. But it is great to just have those tools. So anything you would like, again, because you're a new hobbyist, like to see change in the hobby? Or where would you like to see it in 5 years?
It's a big question. Where do I want to see it in 5 years?
And that may be one that really can't be answered, because you may be kind of happy where it is, and you don't really see it changing 5 years from now.
This is a pie in the sky. I don't think this is going to happen for economics purposes, but what would be really cool in the hobby is for a central clearinghouse like MyGray or a third party to be the to be the group that all the teams partner with, because that would save a lot of headaches, I think, from people who don't know how a certain team sells their product or don't know how certain products get out there. And I like having buy it now prices instead of necessarily auction prices. And something that I was watching closely, for example, I remember the MyGray pricing for David Pasternak jerseys. The last year they had him, and the first year that Boston took their program in-house, of course, it was the Centennial season. And I was looking at what the Pasternak's pricing was, and I remember thinking, would MyGray have tried to get this much for them? And it would be really cool to have a single place where you could go that partners with all the teams, so collectors could have a one-stop place, also to build those relationships, because the teams don't always respond to you, as you've heard from other collectors on the show. But MyGray, I can send sales@mygray.com an email, and probably within 30 minutes, I've got a response from somebody.
Well, and again, us old timers do remember, and Paul or Wade jump in, because I don't remember exactly how many total teams it was, but I'll use 03-04, for example. MyGray had a good chunk of the NHL teams at that point.
Yeah.
And I believe all the AHL teams up till the mid-2000s, and may have been half the East Coast ones. I know they had all the AHL, but I don't remember how many total NHL teams. 03-04 is the biggest one that pops into my head for numbers, but I swear it was close to 20 that they had. So it was close to that. Some teams have just always sold them, but the biggest thing is and again, not knocking MyGray or anything, but you just see as teams realize they want to try and make their own money in house or do it some other way, you see that shift. We've seen it with the Blues a couple different ways. They tried Fanatics at one point. They used MyGray, and now they run their own program. Other teams have done different directions. So you've seen that ebb and flow a little bit. But it would be nice to you're right, kind of a central repository, but then a lot of teams, because they see the value in those auctions, I believe, over the stock pricing. But like even Wade, for you and I, up till I remember what year that was, 12, 13, 14, 15, somewhere in there, they were just selling them in their store at a price. There weren't really many auctions. It was they showed up in the store and that's where you bought them.
Yeah, that was it. It was there's been some definite changes the way you can access things. So
And Dallas used to only sell their stuff at the arena during games. You couldn't get it any other way. And a few of us talked to them and the person at the time saying, hey, we outside of Dallas want it for the player or whatever. And they started doing stuff online, part of it at a request of a few of us, because they realized we were calling trying to buy stuff. And like, we didn't expect people outside of Dallas to want this. So it's even sometimes a learning curve for teams. So and I think it's been an absolutely fantastic discussion. The stuff with the insurance, one, hopefully helps Megan some and helps a lot of other collectors out there who either haven't insured their stuff, do it in a different way, and maybe they can change this. And if you are a listener out there who has it other ways, feel free to reach out and kind of let us know. I'll mention those either with or without names, however you want it, to say, oh, yeah, I use this kind of thing, or my insurance company made me do this, or here's the appraisal kind of thing I had to do. So we can expand on this a little bit more. But I think the discussion's been phenomenal, Alex, and I appreciate all your time this evening.
Oh, well, right back at you. I appreciate your all's time and inviting me on and letting me talk about the hobby and share my experiences with the insurance as well as in general with collecting. I really appreciate it. I really like the forum. I think podcasting is great, and I'm really happy with the fact that you all do this. It's nice. I usually listen to it on my walk to the subway on Friday mornings, so it's a nice tradition.
Well, now you can listen to yourself tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Yes,
I can do that.
Even being in radio for terrestrial radio for 6+ years and doing this, I hate the sound of my own voice, so I never listen to it. Any final thoughts from you before we get out of here on any hobby related thing at all?
Yeah, it's minor, but one last thing, I have a pro tip for the young people, like the new collectors. Well, good. The new collectors like myself. One final piece of advice I have is use the search feature of Facebook channels or Facebook groups to see who's posted the things you're interested in. And also use the posts where for example, it's the show your gamer post. Because sometimes you can find jerseys in those that you are interested in. And you can reach out to the owner and maybe they're in a point where they would like to sell it or trade it. I've gotten a few that way as well. That tidbit was wrangling around in my head as we were finishing up with the groups. That's a really good way to do it, especially that countdown as you get to 99 and below days towards the season and you find out where all the Steve Yzermans are. And you're like, when I have the money one day, who should I reach out to instead of blowing it out into the void, ISO Yzerman. So yeah, that's my final tip. You can search Facebook groups and it's been a very useful feature for me.
No, that's a powerful tip. Thank you. Because a lot of people don't think about that. And I've dug stuff, even just if I need past research for something. Oh yeah, I think I remember, and then be able to search it. And sometimes do the general Facebook search if you're specific enough, or like you said, go into the groups and do the search is quite powerful. Paul, any final thoughts from you, sir?
Yeah, a couple comments and then a couple more questions, I guess, too. My one concern, if we ever were to go to a centralized, clearinghouse for jerseys and stuff, my biggest fear, and you guys all know what I'm going to say, it would end up being Fanatics. And it's...
yes.
I already have enough dislike for them, I guess is the right term. So and honestly, I kind of like having to deal with different entities to get different jerseys. In a way, after all these years of collecting and knowing where you have to go to get stuff, I don't know, I just find it interesting. And it does take time to get used to that and accept it, rather than just, my gray's great. They've been the standard for getting stuff out. for decades now. But yeah, so no, I just want to comment on that. Two questions related thing. One thing in regards to insurance, and this, I'm asking this because of Wade. Does your policy cover when you travel? So let's say you check a bag with an air tag in for a flight with a bunch of jerseys, and it goes missing. Would your the current policy you have, would it cover it? Because I know some of the policies out there cover it for travel and also for when you ship.
I have zero idea.
Yes. Oh no, this is a question for Alex, but it's for Wade since you're traveling in 6 hours.
Yeah, I was like, wow.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I don't know how that would work. I'm assuming, so like, I mean, probably that's a great question. I mean, your auto insurance would at some level cover it if you like got in a car accident and they burned up, I think, but that would get sketchy too because it's not something that's connected to the vehicle. I mean, who knows? I have no answer. I'd be speculating.
Alex, do you have an answer, or do you?
My answer is I need to double check my policy writing because I haven't traveled with any of them yet under the policy. But I can say that the collecting insurance outfit that I was looking at first talked about that specifically, and they offered 2 different tranches of insurance for that. You could have collector insurance, which is if you didn't have there was a certain threshold, and if you didn't have turnover beyond that in your collection, you could get collector insurance and you were good. But if you wanted to have that insurance cover your jerseys in transit or cover them when they were sold above the $100 USPS standard for those packages, you could get sellers. You could get, I think, vendors insurance, vendor or sellers collection insurance that cost more, but it would cover them in transit whenever you sold them or if you were taking them to a convention. My current one, I'm going to write that down to double check. That's a great point.
Yeah, we might want to, at least for the first one, the collector's insurance, the other company to not go with, we might want to get a link to throw in when we post this. Doc can put that in there. But,
yeah, shoot me that, Alex, just so we can. And again, check with your. And in your case, Alex, you used the company you have your renter's insurance through. Check your company. The companies may have that, or they may have an offshoot. Some may really understand it, and other insurance companies may not have a clue. But make sure you check around. I'm curious. I may even try and put a poll out. Facebook's always so bad with those, but just even if I can do an anonymous one of how many people actually insure their collections. I'd be curious what number that is.
Yeah. Good question. So, and then I do have another, well, this caught me by surprise. I never really thought about this. How is the resale market for authentics? Since you funded your game worn, transitioned game worn from selling authentics, I know nothing about that market. I mean, is it possible to break even selling authentics from your experience, or?
Yeah, from my experience, you can break even pretty easily. You're not going to have the same kind of profit ability that you would for a gamer that you got lucky and purchased, and then the player became like a superstar or something like that. But on the flip side, I found that the prices stayed pretty steady, especially in that Reddit group, in the hockey jerseys subreddit, you'll see a lot of people posting either authentics, or at this point you'll see made in Canada Adidas jerseys with the dimples that still command a decent price if customized well or if team issued. And then there's an authentic hockey jersey addicts Facebook group, and you can get, unless you drastically overpaid because it was a style that's really hard to find, I found you could at least get your money back pretty easily with authentics. And it's funny that you mentioned this because I remember I had a completely different mindset when I was in the authentic market. And my girlfriend who's in the other room probably laugh when she hears this. So we're all about the wear and the sweat stains and the blood stains and the black marks on these. When I would get my authentic jerseys, I would actually iron them because I wanted to make them look pristine. And I noticed that sometimes people would comment on my photos and go, wow, this thing looks really fresh. And that would help me sometimes close deals. So it's a completely different mind shift of I want it beat up versus I want it to look like it just came out of the package, even if it's something from the early 90s.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a whole new world for me.
Yeah, it's different.
So, and I do have one final comment on what you talked about, like reaching out and meeting people and asking questions and stuff. And then Doc led into it. Attending expos is such a great thing. I have met so many people in this hobby in the real world. I mean, Doc, Wade, and I have all met in person. Justin's been out here. I going to expos, and we have our whole crew here in San Jose. I know Southern Cal. It's just it's really nice to get outside of the digital world and then out there in person. And it's wonderful. I mean, these guys are friends, and it's great, chatting with them, getting to see them occasionally. Now, in terms, as you mentioned, a lot of times deals will come your way because you've let people know what you might want. The same thing happens here at expos, where people will bring you stuff like, oh, I know you've been looking for this, and a lot of deals get worked out over beers or drinks. Wade will have to comment if Migrate if there actually is a trading thing on Friday night.
There is. It's
Hoagie's running it, isn't it?
Hoagie's hosting something on Friday night. I'll be attending that as well. So yes, there is a Friday night trade and social gathering.
Yeah, so those social gatherings, even just small groups or very small groups going out for dinner and drinks, a lot of deals get done, and it's amazing what you might find.
I mean, like I've literally, and you guys have probably seen me like on my phone a little bit. I've literally been getting texts from other collectors and friends who are like, hey, when are you getting in? Hey, we're, what I'm saying? Like, so that's been part of my night. And I still have to go pack. So I still haven't decided what I'm taking entirely. So it's kind of a mess.
Just throw in some jerseys. It will surprise you. So.
Yeah. So, Doc, you haven't gotten to me on my final thought, and
I think Paul was all wrapped up, so I was getting ready to get there right now.
Well, almost. I was just, and thank you, Alex, for this. Really appreciate you coming on the show. And now I can turn it over to Wade.
Yeah, my final thought is kind of funny.
I'm sorry, we've run out of time. We have to go.
Till next week, folks. My final thought was just this: like we were talking about different people reaching out and different things, and then people talking about people being tire kickers. And I'm gonna throw this out there, and this might be the hot take of the week. If you are a seller and you find yourself to be in a position where you feel like everyone is tire kickers, there might be a problem with your pricing, right? I find myself a lot of times reaching out to people when somebody will list something, especially when people don't put prices on it or whatever, or when people do say, oh, I'm thinking about doing this, and then I've reached out, or if I have questions, like you guys talk about having questions, or hey, do you have any pictures? A lot of times I will become very quiet if your price sucks, or if the jersey isn't what I thought it should be. So I guess that's the other side of that argument from people who say, oh, I'm tired of the tire kickers. There is a portion of time where there could be something on your end that's causing that. So just food for thought.
No, and I think that's a very, very solid thing to wrap up on. Again, Wade, safe travels to you tomorrow. Hopefully you get good stuff packed. You're not packing 10 minutes before you need to be at the airport. Get checked in plenty of time. Hopefully everything goes well out there. Again, everybody else traveling as well to the Migrate Expo, please be safe. Enjoy yourself. Go see Wade for our collectible cards and things like that. I know it's going to be a fun weekend. Can't wait to talk about that next week once you're back. Like, subscribe, do all those things. We keep. I need to check the Apple Podcast charts because I think we're on there somewhere now. At least that's what I think I saw the other day. So. Give us all those things. If you want to come on, like Alex reached out just after the show. If you have topics, things like that, please reach out. We would love to have you. Next week's show will be earlier in the week. I'll actually be traveling next Thursday, be out of town. So we'll do a show. It'll drop a little earlier next week than Friday. So people always get excited about that. Enjoy the Migrate Expo this weekend. We'll talk more about it next week. Until then, we'll see you guys all next time.